Hello everyone, this is Prem Kumar, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Pega latest version 24.2. For the past few days you might have noted a lot of people talking about the latest features. I just thought, why can't I make a video to create a highlights of all those new features with 24.2. Let's straight away get into this video. First thing I want to talk is about the infrastructure support updates. Pega has their official documentation, the platform support guide, through which you can understand the different platform supports or the different infrastructure which Pega supports per each version. This is the official platform support guide for 24.2. Here you can look into different software support. Let's mainly look into the servers. We already know that from 8.8, Pega deprecated all the application servers deployment and they support only the WAR deployments or the web application deployment. And Apache Tomcat is the preferred server where Pega can be deployed. As you can see, from 24.2, they completely removed the support. It means when you get any kind of Docker images or any kind of deployment artifacts, you will not get anything as a ER deployment or the app server deployment. You can scroll down and find Apache Tomcat is the preferred server, and you also find something on the Java version. As you can see, the 24.2, it supports only the Java 17. It means Java 8 and Java 11 will also be not supported. If you scroll little further down, you will also find that the Java versions, right? Only 17 is supported in 24.2 and the lower versions 8 and 11 are not supported. The next important thing is about the externalization. We already know that again from 8.8 Pega deprecated all these externalized services like the Elasticsearch, the Kafka, the Cassandra, and from 24.2 those are totally removed. It means you cannot run a Pega server with embedded services. You have to externalize, and it is a mandatory if you want to upgrade to 24. You can also find the same if you scroll bit up. Kafka, they mentioned that from 24.2, you should always use external instance. Similarly for Cassandra and this version, and also for the Elasticsearch, you see embedded is totally stopped. You can only use externalized Elasticsearch, and that is also based on certain deployments like the SRS service which you can use. Hazelcast is also kind of an externalized service, but it is not completely removed in 24.2. It is still in the deprecated state. Okay, this is all about the platform support guide or the software support. Now let's look into a lot of new changes that we get with the App Studio or Dev Studio. Next, let's start with exploring the changes which we get with the App Studio development. Here you can see I have two instances. One is 24.2, that is in my first tab, and in the second tab I also have 24.1.1. And second tab is my community edition, which is still 24.1.1. Then you may ask, how did I get this 24.2? You can just go to any of the Pega Academy challenge environment, and whenever Pega releases a new version, most of the time they will also have that challenge environment also in the latest version. So this is one of the challenge environment. You can also see this Go Road application, part of the challenge environment. Okay. Now let's just quickly switch to the App Studio. First important thing is related to Blueprint. We all know about this Pega Gen AI Blueprint, right? Blueprint helps with designing all your applications at the very top level. It can be a starting point when you want to build out any kind of enterprise application. I already have a dedicated video on Blueprint. Now with 24.2, what you get is you can extend your existing application by importing a blueprint. As you can see here, there is an option which you get from the App Studio, the home page, the dashboard, where you can import a blueprint, and then you can also import your existing application as a blueprint. If I do an export, what Pega does is it just create a file for you, a blueprint extension file, which can then be installed into another systems. By this way, we can share the Pega blueprint across developers if needed. This is just like you are exporting and importing a zip, right? Similarly, we can also do that for the blueprint. And the next main thing about the App Studio lies in this library. I hope you know about this library where it can display some reusable assets. So you have these case types, you have these data objects, and then you also have the business logics, right? If you go to the 24.1 version, you will also find the same kind of thing, case type, data objects, and logic. And this library contains the reusable assets which we can mark it from the Dev Studio. In the Dev Studio, when you want to reuse some of the rule, you can mark it as relevant records. I hope many of you are aware of these relevant records, and whatever rule rules you mark it as relevant records will be listed here. So these things you can do it in the Dev Studio and then come to App Studio, right? But in the 24.2 version, you can also directly create the rules from here, the reusable rules, which will be default marked as relevant. For example, if you go here and then say create new, you can select different types of rules. Individually, you can create the rules, which is not available till 24.1. As you can see, there is no button available. So by this way, you can create reusable assets from the App Studio. Okay, next, let's move to the case design and the data management part. On the case design, whenever you create a new case type, Pega by default creates some insights for those case type, and those insights can be added to the landing pages. I'll quickly show you. Let's say I'm going to create a new case type in 24.2 version. Just quickly follow up with me. Now, if I go to the landing pages of the portal, there you will find that there is a new landing page created for the case type, like the marketing. And by default, Pega also creates some kind of insights for you. At this moment, you just use the primary fields like the label and description, but you can always include your own properties. This is the case type I just created, but if you created your case type, defined your data model, have some data, you can easily see it from here. So by this way, these landing pages can be easily displayed into the portal as one of the navigations. The next on the data management part is you can now add attachments in the context of data object. Till 24.1, you cannot do that. You can always add the attachments directly onto the top level or onto the case context. Now you can even include the attachments inside the repeating grid or the table layout. I will show you how to do that. First, let's go to the 24.1, the previous version, and use any kind of data type. Let me use the existing data type, customer. And here, if you try to create any field, you don't have an option to use attachments, right? As you can see, I don't have anything on attachments. This is on 24.1. Now, if you go to 24.2, open any of the data type. Let me use the same thing, the customer one, and then add a new field. You can already see there is something called attachments, right? So you get this one with the disclaimer saying that attachment fields can be used in an embedded page only if embedded page is at a case level, because technically the design still stays the same. You can tag the attachments only to the case. You can never upload any attachments only to a data instance. That is still not possible. So you have a case, you have a POI page, and inside that you have something called customer, which is embedded. And inside the customer, you can add some attachments, like you can add some information about the customer, a resume about the customer. So those type of attachments can be added in the table grid, but still that points to the case. So that is why they just clearly mention it can't be used inside a hierarchy of a standalone data object. Okay, let's try to create that. Let me give the name as customer doc. Just for demo purpose, I'll just name it like this and give file. You can also add one record or multiple records. That's also possible. Let me keep it simple. I'm going to add one record. Okay, now I created a new property of attachment type, right? Now how to use this into a case level? I'll just try to keep it as simple as possible. Now first I go to the case type. I'll use this existing case type, assistant request. In the very first screen, I'm just going to display the customer results. Configure view, because attachments is added as part of customer, right? So here I have to use a field, and in the case type, let's create a new field that can use as an embed data. I'm going to say customer details embed data, and I'm going to use it as a list of records. Just do a submit now. Now if you go inside this customer details, there you can add the columns. Add this customer doc column, and maybe I will also add one more field called full name, and then do a submit. Save the case, try to run it. And here you can just try to add a customer. Okay, still I don't see the customer docs. The reason is if you go to this customer details, when you try to add something, it uses this create view, right? So this create view should also include the document upload functionality. Yeah, you just need to go to the data type and add it there. I will quickly show you. These are all like the App Studio low code development when you develop some Constellation application. So this may be totally new if you never used Constellation, but just quickly follow up with me. You go to the UX and then other views. I am into the data type now, and I'm going to update this create form. And here I'll just add this field. Do a save. Now if you create a new case and then try to add a customer, I just want to show you this, right? You see here, I can upload a document. I'm just uploading here. Let me call my name. I just want to show you this UI look and feel. You can now see in a repeating grid, you can add documents. Technically now if you go to the data work attach, there you will find that the link is still made within the case, the A24 case, but it is appended within this page list. And one more quick thing I want to show is in the data object, you also get a new tab, action tab, where you can define two types of action. One, you can create a new case, or you can also update details. Okay, update details. Why do we need that? Let's say you have a repeating grid with like 10 columns and email is one of the column. And if you want to update only the email address, normally if you want to edit, you may be presented with the big screens, right? So in such scenarios, what you can do is you can say something called update details, or I will say update email. And then in the configure view, I can just provide an option only for this email field. So if I give like this will be more like an other actions, which you know very well because it is also part of the UI kit things, right? Similarly, for a data object, you get something like an other actions through which you can execute this. So this is all about the case management and the data management. Now let's move to the integration part. In the integration, there were a lot of changes that are related to the Gen AI, which we will see next. First, let's look into the changes that comes with the service soap. Here I just opened one out of the box service soap rule. If you go to the faults tab, there you will find two blocks, fault header as well as fault conditions. But till 24.1, if you go to the faults tab, normally you will find only these things, right? And all the lower versions. 24.2, Pega introduced these fault headers as well. So in case of error condition, you can also send some fault headers. Although SOAP is not getting used that often because most of the time you will be using REST service. But this is good to know. Okay, now let's get into the another integration, the Gen AI integration, the Gen AI connectors. Before we talk about this Gen AI connector, I think last year I created a video talking about Pega Gen AI. At that time, it was a broader scope. Now, Pega introduced a lot of products that are part of this Pega Gen AI suite. There are at least 5 products in the market. Gen AI Blueprint, Gen AI Buddy, and then you also have Gen AI Coach, Automate, and then Analyze. Definitely Pega Gen AI deserves a special video because they did a lot of interesting things into the Gen AI area. But for now, we will just concentrate on what are the things we get as a new with 24.2 version. The main changes are done with Pega Gen AI Coach, and then you also have some changes with the Gen AI connector. First, let's start with Gen AI Coach. I hope many of you know this Gen AI Buddy, right? There are different flavors. Sometimes I feel it can be a bit confusing because you have something called Self-Study Buddy, and then you have something called Socrates, which both helps with the knowledge management. And then Pega as a product, they sell to the customers as Gen AI Buddy, where they feed on the documents and then help the end users with the right data at the right time. Okay, that is on the Buddy. And then with Coach, what they do is they can also use some of the data and then help the end users provide some input at the runtime or during the case processing. Again, I'm not going to talk more in detail about the Gen AI Coach, but you can just easily find it online. I'll just show you in 24.2 how you get. In the older versions, Gen AI Coach, it means 24.1 version, Gen AI Coach can be added to a case as a kind of a widget, but now the configuration is changed. If you open the case type, go to the UX tab and then scroll down to the full page view. There you will find something called Gen AI Coaches. Let's see if we can add something. As you can see, there is one coach exists. I'm just going to add that one. Do a save. So what you see here is now you can add multiple Gen AI coaches to an existing case type. User can even get coached by different coaches. Okay, what is this Gen AI coach actually meant? If you go to the Dev Studio, you have now a new category, Gen AI category. Before, under the integration connectors, you might have noted this Gen AI connector, right? I'm just into 24.1 version. Go to this integration connector, you see connect generative AI. Now you totally get a new block, generative AI block, and under this you have Gen AI Connect. This represents all the connector Gen AI, and then you also have Gen AI Coach. You see there is only one default coach which was selected for the case type. Okay, now how does this coach behaves? Because I am into the Pega Academy Challenge environment, Gen AI is not enabled for me. It means I cannot really make API calls unless I do some configurations, which I'm not going to do. But the thing is, like, you get this option, Pega Gen AI Coach, which you see at the right bottom, right? Just click on that. There you will get some coach data. So these coach data can be managed, or some of the initial questions can be done or configured from the Pega Dev Studio. So this is the configuration is going to be like this. And of course, this is going to change a lot in the coming versions. But this is what you get with 24.2, where you can set some guided questions. And the next important change is on the Gen AI Connect. Let's open one of the rule, out of the box rule, and on the advanced tab now you can select the Gen AI model, all the applicable models which you can choose, and then you can also choose some kind of temperature for it. What is temperature? As you can see, when you specify it as 1, it can be more creative, but if you want to have some kind of conservative results, then you can keep it as minimum. You don't want to just update it, you can accept this. And the other changes are you can run a connector rule. So normally, just like when you execute an activity, you test something, right? Similarly, you can also run a Gen AI Connect from 24.2, and also in the tracer now, tracer has the capability to trace this Gen AI Connect. So you can also debug easily using the tracer. Next, we will talk about the insights and reporting. Insights we briefly talked during the case management, where when you create a new case type, Pega automatically create an insight for you, a landing page which can be embedded into the user portal, right? If insight, the term is totally new to you, it is nothing but reporting, but it can be called as AI powered reporting. So all you have to do is just go to this explore data tab. There you can find different kinds of reports. As you can see already, there were a lot of insights that comes out of the box. And with this explore data, you can explore different types of objects. For example, let's go to the customer. And here there are sample like 5 data is available, right? What I can do is I can just chat with this data. Again, Gen AI doesn't work. And this is not 24.2. This already exists in 24.1. I can even try that. But the thing is, this is the insight, and Pega did a lot of improvements to make these insights more user friendly. I'm not going to go in detail because those are small minor changes, but insights have been improved. On the reporting side, there were a lot of changes done on the BIGS reporting. First big change is you can have the secondary database and you can extract it into the secondary database. Big organizations, they may have their own database cluster, they may have secondary database, and primary database is where the applications and users will be doing some kind of transactions, or those can be very busy. So secondary database, we can execute some report into the secondary database to extract the content, right? So BIGS does the extraction, and now it can use the secondary database. And the second change is about it can also use some custom repository. If you are into Pega Cloud, you are by default using this Pega Cloud repository. Now in the extract rule itself, when you extract the content as a file, then you can use your own repository. The third change, the important change, is real-time extraction. Till now, BIGS, how it works is it can work as a background jobs, right? Maybe daily you run a background job, extract all the data, put it into your data store, or you invoke the BIGS shell script, extract the data, right? So it was more like a cron job. Now Pega also supports the future of real-time data extraction. If a case is created, if a BIGS extract is available that needs to pull up the case, then real time, as soon as one entry is made, it can go to the data store. So real time data extraction is possible. It is available with a checkbox. At the backend, Pega uses some API calls to manage that. That looks very interesting to me, but definitely you should explore it and see how it can help. I'm not really sure what can be the drawback, but really it looks very interesting to me on the real time BIGS extraction. Moving on, let's talk about the security changes which we get with 24.2. The main change is about the content security policy which can be used with the Constellation application. As you know, that Constellation application definitely needs to load a lot of JavaScripts, right? Some scripts will be loaded, and normally this configuration stays in the content security policy. Let's check what are the changes we get. First, I am into 24.1 or the lower versions. If you open your application and then go to the security tab, there you will find content security policy, which you can define for your application, right? It can be a Constellation application, it can be any application. But from 24.2, the same application, if you open any Constellation application, you will get a different block. They call it as content security policy. And there you can define content security policy based on the portal. If you have Constellation UI portal, you can define own content security policy. If you have something for your traditional UI portal, you can define your own content security policy. This is the one change. And the next change is there are some options also available for the scripts and the styles. Content security policy, I already created a dedicated video on it, so please have a look. And the change which I was mentioning is with 24.2, you get this nonce and blob which gets added to the script source that helps with enhancing the security. The next topic which I want to talk is about the system administration, especially on the background processing. First, let's talk about this queue processing. Definitely there is some kind of confusion happened because in the documentation, the official documentation, Pega made some confusion with the recent changes. Let me explain you very quickly. With the queue processor, the important change is you get some option called authentication option now. Before, you always get this option of alternate access group, right? So when you want to define it into a different access group, you can use this option and specify an access group. If not, if you look at the help, what you will see is Pega will use the access group of the operator who queues it. So that's what it was mentioned officially in their documentation, but now they changed it completely. And now we get three options. Either we can use current access group. Second, also it uses the current access group, but it looks like it will use the operator ID as well. Maybe we get an entry saying that operator ID is updating, because these two refers to the same access group contents. And then you can also have alternate access group. Now the big confusion starts when you look at the official documentation. Go here, docs.pega.com, and then search for queue for processing method. Scroll till the end. There they confuse everything. There they reference all this system runtime context. And here you see the default option runs the queue processor in the background using the access group defined in the queue processor. First thing is, open any queue processor, you will never find that we define access group in the queue processor, right? Only job scheduler we define the access group, but in queue processor we never define the access group. But the documentation always mentioned that the default configuration is in the queue processor, which was not the case. And just this is not meaningful, and this can cause some confusion. So I believe Pega will update that. The next important thing about the queue processor is Pega now claims that queue processor will be processed in the right order. Okay, just think of the Kafka process. The main thing about the Kafka processing is also like the order of data. Just take any food delivery app or the messages that get generated. Order will be accepted, order will be preparing, on the way, delivered, right? These messages should be in the order and should be processed in the right order, or the notification should be sent in the right order, right? That we all agree. Similarly, in a business process, there can be a lot of messages or statuses that can change within some seconds, and the order can be more priority. But if you take Pega's queue processing, the queue messages are split into the partitions, and then the order was not given that priority. But what Pega claims is, let's say if the Steam services are down, Pega will maintain the order in such a way that it stores the data into the database table and then it maintains the order. They did this improvement into 24 point. And then the final change is on the job scheduler. Let's say if a job scheduler fails, sometimes it just stops. It never restart. Manually, we have to do a restart, right? Now Pega has an auto mechanism that can check for a job scheduler, and if it is stopped with the error for more time, it can automatically restart. But that is also controlled with the DSS. You can have a call on that. If you really want to stop it, you can control it with the DSS, and you can also allow Pega to retry the job scheduler. The next is on the user interface. Of course, in user interface, Pega does some changes with the traditional UI, Constellation UI. Let's get started with the traditional UI. Traditional UI, Pega did one big change, like when you are into some form and you entered some data, and if your system is idle, your session is idle, after a few seconds, the form will try to submit at the backend, like the data will get posted to the server. Why? To avoid the data loss. So this is one of the change. Of course, if there is some kind of validation, your data will not get saved. But this improvement Pega did in the traditional UI. And Pega also removed some of the libraries from the Pega end user UI, and Pega claims that there won't be any issues with that. And those libraries can be vulnerable to the security, and those are used for these UI galleries, which you might have noted in traditional UI. So they just removed it. In case if you are using some of the Pega's out of the box libraries, UI gallery libraries to have some fancy UI, some things can break. So just note that there are some libraries that were removed from the Pega end user UI, which should not be a big. And with Constellation UI, there were a lot of changes. As usual, Pega is investing a lot, Constellation and this Gen AI. So Constellation also you get a lot of change. Some of the interesting changes are on the hierarchical forms. Like normally if you want to display bulk data, you can use the default tab layout. Now in the UI kit, you can also have some hierarchical layout, right? So Pega supports it in the Constellation, as well as the attachments which we just saw from the case management and the data management. And finally, you can also now debug from the user portal. You can start some traces and do other options as well from the Constellation application. I'll just keep it short on the Constellation. Finally, the important thing, let's talk about some deprecations. We already saw from the very first point about the support guide where some of the softwares like the Java version as well as the externalization, those were deprecated or those were totally removed out of support, right? Agent rules. Pega deprecated this agent rule right from when these job schedulers and queue processes got introduced, but still developers, teams are using agents. Now with 24.2, what you get is agents just disappeared from the sysadmin category. You can just find agent schedule, but there is no agent. You are not allowed to create agents. start using job schedulers and queue processes. I like this change a lot. Okay, one final topic before we end this video is Pega also introduced the solution frameworks like the customer service and the CDH. Those solution framework also have its own version into 24.2. I'm really interested to look into this customer service 24.2 because recently I did a POC Constellation customer service. There were some challenges because Pega just recently introduced the Constellation flavor of their customer service, and in 24.2 they did a lot of improvements, especially when you want to coexist cases. So those things are definitely good to explore. So when you upgrade your Pega platform with the solution framework, you should be also upgrading those solution frameworks to 24.2. All these are some of the highlights which I find myself interesting or kind of important, which all the developers or lead system architects should know. I also missed a few of the points. I'll provide the official documentation link through which you can go to the release notes, and Pega also created a lot of videos individually on each of the category. You can go through, just get more confidence with 24.2. And if you haven't explored any kind of GenAI thing, please do explore. That is where Pega is going towards. Don't miss the boat. Just sail with Pega. See you in the next lecture.